Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stroke of Reality. I'm Kevin, and this is my partner Jess. And we've gotten together to do podcasts and talk about some of the issues as a stroke survivors ourselves. I'm an 11-year stroke survivor. Jess, you are how many years?
Three, three
3
year
years.
survivor.
So this week we want to just talk about different questions and different thoughts about our experiences, what other people are going through, and hopefully we can answer some of those questions. So this week's topic, we're going to kind of look at inpatient, outpatient situations. Now, the great thing about it, I'm in Canada, Jess is in the States. So we're going to talk about our experiences from a country perspective more than not only our individual perspective. So just since you are more newer, you're 3 years in, why don't you kind of give us the lowdown on your experience, first of all, as an inpatient person, and then afterwards as an outpatient.
All right, we'll see what I can remember. But yes, I am officially 3 years post stroke, still going strong. So my stroke was January 1st of 2023. And so I was rushed to the hospital by friends, not by ambulance. Thankfully, I had friends that were quick to react to my symptoms and got me into the hospital in time, quicker than the professionals, too, by the way. And so I was in the hospital for about a month and a half post surgery. And I don't I know I can speak towards Pittsburgh. I'm in the United States, but I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was in the hospital, like I said. They induced me into a coma for about 3 weeks or 18 days. And when I woke up, the inpatient care happened acutely, which means right away or quickly from the medical event. And so I was evaluated and I was taken to a different inpatient care stroke hospital. I don't know if that makes sense. So I was taken to a different hospital that specialized in post-stroke care. Um, and in there is where I was recovering from my surgeries, and then also learned that my entire left side was affected. So I was paralyzed on my entire left side. I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand, I couldn't wave, so that was traumatizing. But slowly but surely, the inpatient physical therapist and occupational therapist and speech therapist worked with me until I was safe enough to return home sometime in February for the first time of 2023. So it took about a month for me to regain my ability to stand and take steps. And like we said, it's probably different for each country. Me in the United States, I was working full time when I had my stroke. It was the holidays, so I was at home hosting a brunch, but I had insurance coverage through the employer that I had, and that determined, the amount of care, what care I was able to get. And that's pretty common in the United States, is that our insurance determines our recovery. Don't get me started on it, but unfortunately, yeah, that's why I had to move hospitals from, my initial surgeries to my post-stroke acute recovery uh, era or phase of recovery.
Yeah, I know with the States and Canada, there is a lot of difference in health coverage. So as you
Mhm.
said, I and Jess are pretty much parallel in terms of our stroke. I'm in Canada. I've been 11 years now. So my recollection, I do have a lot of it, but it's changed somewhat from 11 years ago. But when I had mine, like Jess, I had mine on Christmas Eve. And lucky for me, really, there was nobody in the hospital when I went. So I went to one hospital, I went to Toronto General, and that's where, I was diagnosed with the stroke. And they moved me to their sister hospital, Toronto Western. So if those of you who live in Ontario, Toronto Western is one of the best neurology hospitals in Ontario, well, in the Toronto GTA area. So, if you get to that hospital, it is really good. Went there and they put me in ICU for a few days, and then they got me started on rehab right away. I was paralyzed like Jess. I went through a lot. The trauma of not being able to move the left side of my body was very tough. But getting into rehab right away helped me recover a lot better. And I think that's one of the big things I've noticed with others. If you're going through like a surgery like Jess and have to wait a little bit, sometimes the body gets atrophy, and try to get something when you're in the hospital and try to get people to give you some small exercises, or if not, try to do them on your own, just trying to move your hands and every day keep trying to do things. So my experience was that our coverage was covered. We have OHIP, we call OHIP, it's Ontario Health Plan here in my province of Ontario. And all my rehab as an inpatient at West Park, where I was sent from Toronto Western. I lived there for 30 days, and they did all the rehab, and that's all covered by our insurance here. So even though I might have health insurance through my wife or myself, the government did cover the inpatient aspect of recovery. So yeah, one of the things you just have to do, like, just as mentioned in the States, you sometimes have to you're dictated by the coverage, whether your company covers. Some companies, in doesn't matter what country, some companies are really good and some companies don't have the greatest plan. So there's some of the things you need to figure out while your loved one is in waiting, to get diagnosed and get through all that, what kind of coverage you do have. Because Jess, I'll assume your family, your boyfriend or your parents kind of looked into what you had, and that kind of dictated, as you said earlier, what
Mhm.
direction you were going to go.
Oh, yes. And in Pittsburgh, we have two major networks that our insurance typically picks or, chooses one or the other. So it gets a little hairy and complicated. But thankfully, I had fantastic support in fellow researchers on my team to, navigate which hospital system was a better choice for my recovery and more experienced, et cetera, so on and so forth.
Yeah, great. I mean, for myself, West Park was sort of in Toronto. You actually list the hospitals you want to go to, and then it's an acceptance thing, whichever one takes you first. So it happened to be West Park was the only one open that day that someone was there, and they accepted me right away. Wasn't my
Wow.
first choice because it was probably the farthest from my home. My wife worked downtown where there's a couple other hospitals, but it ended up being one of the greater hospitals, and I was very happy with the people and the recovery I had. So if you can get into West Park, highly recommend it in terms of a hospital I worked at. All right, that I had my recovery. I guess next, after you have your inpatient, you're going to get them moved. Once, as Jess said earlier, you get a little bit better in the recovery, you're going to be starting to move as an outpatient. So this is no different than a standard hospital. If you go in for some kind of surgery and then they deem you well enough that you can go home. So mine was 30 days. I think Jess had mentioned somewhere just around 60 days, roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I
what
know I can I'm sorry, I can only speak for the United States again, and specifically Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I know, and from my experience, it's my experience that the inpatient rehab team, their sole goal and responsibility is to get us back up and running so that we're safe enough that we can go home and do, our ADLs or our, daily living activities, um, or activities of daily living so that, they can free up a hospital bed again. Because I know we are so inundated with new patients, coming in all the time, and they need the space to, to make room for those new patients so that they can care for other people too. So inpatient, like I said, it took me about a month to get up and start taking steps post stroke. And I did my initial recovery at West Penn Hospital, for those of you who are familiar with the Pittsburgh region. And they were phenomenal. But I was there for, like I said, about a month, month and a half until I was up and able to walk assisted with a cane. And had an AFO on my foot for my foot drop to help me take steps, to help with my foot drop on the left side. And so once I was able to, stand up and start taking steps on my own safely, they discharged me. And so then my family was able to bring me home. And God bless them. My parents and my partner both, they modified our homes to make it safe for me and to make it wheelchair accessible if I needed it, continued at home. So we added grab bars and sticky things to the floor, for traction, and just, and stair rails, things like that, to help, accommodate my needs.
Yeah, that's
And I
great.
got, oh yeah, and I got home the first time in early February of 2023. And in my situation, unfortunately, I did have to go back to the hospital in March the following month to have an additional brain surgery for my moya moya, which is what caused my stroke.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in terms of, the experiences we both went through, I went through 30 days and I actually got to go home on weekends because I guess I was fit enough to do that. But that's a
No.
rare situation. They just deemed me what would be good for my self-esteem and confidence and everything else to go home. So I go
Yeah.
home on a Friday and have to check myself back in on Sunday night
Oh,
and
wow.
then go through rehab all over. So my rehab consisted of basically 3 to 5 hours every day. In Canada, that's sort of the number. Your minimum you're supposed to receive is 3 hours a day of rehabilitation. Now, just mentioned earlier, the rehab system or the whole healthcare system for rehab is tough because after COVID, a lot of people left the industry, so they don't have as many therapists as they need. So you have to understand it's a real patience game doing that. Some of it, they just had me. Some of my therapists did two people at the same time. Where I was doing some electrical therapy, and I just have to sit there while the electrons are moving back and forth, helping me stimulate my muscles. But that was sort of the experience I went through. After 30 days, they deemed me well enough to become an outpatient. So I went back to the same hospital as an outpatient. Again, our healthcare system covers that. But again, that is generally about 3 months. And then they'll deem you well enough, as Jess said, just to be able to be able to walk or, be able to move around, whether you use a cane or wheelchair. So each person is going to be different. Understand that. That is just the general norm they work under. I know my rehab as an outpatient was a little bit longer because I was continuing to get well. So my therapist was able to get me continued support, which I'm very thankful for because I don't think without it, I wouldn't be where I am today. And then after we go through our whole outpatient, you get discharged altogether from therapy. So then the next step here in Ontario is to kind of find your own thing. And maybe that's one of the biggest things that I'm having difficulty with the people I'm meeting now, that some people still need therapy, but unless you have insurance coverage or something, it's very rare that they'll keep you on board because, as Jess said, beds are needed, but also therapists only have an 8 hour day, so they can only do so many people one at a time. It's one-on-one therapy. So just when you go as an outpatient, you're going to have to really, one thing I'll suggest is find a place. If you want to go back to the same place you were doing inpatient, great. If you're going to look for an outpatient, see one that will give you more extended time as you're recovering, because the recovery does take a while. Some people it takes, a couple of months, and some people it takes a couple of years. So You're going to have to understand too, in the general sense, recovery is forever. Jess and I will continue to recover as we're going through everything, and I'm still 11 years recovering because I still have hand and balance and feet issues where my walking is still gated, and my left shoulder is still very a lot of scar tissuing, so I can't raise it without some assistance, or if I do, it's very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of the things that I did. A couple of things I did. I worked with my own personal trainer. I joined a gym just to continue to keep working out. Now that came out of my own pocket. I know in our government, you can some of the expenses you can do are for help. Massage therapy, physiotherapy can be written off in your income tax, but again, you have to check all those things out. Every location's different. Jessa, what are you doing now? You're not an outpatient anymore per se, right?
Right. Per se. So, yeah, like Kevin mentioned, we both were affected on our left sides, meaning our left arm, hand, and leg and feet were non-functional when we came out of our stroke. And that's what we've been working toward to, regain that function in our arms, hands, and feet and balance, etc. And, to reiterate, in the United States, inpatient care does not help you with personal goals. They are not a personal trainer. They don't help with weight loss. They don't help with regaining physical goals such as, running a marathon or, dancing, things like that. It is strictly functional for activities for daily living, such as reaching a shelf to pull a cup out of your cabinet to get water, or turning on a stove to boil water for your macaroni and cheese. Things like that, being able to use the bathroom by yourself, those types of things. And I know Kevin was an athlete, I was an athlete, and had more physical goals than our inpatient care team was, able and willing to help with. So I know what I've done after inpatient care, and I know in Pittsburgh, I believe it's everywhere in the United States in the hospitals. There are social workers that will visit you and your family while you are there for inpatient, and they will help set up additional additional care, whether it's, physical therapists go to your home, or you get somewhere else for another outpatient care with what your insurance will provide you, and they will work with you. And so when it was my turn to be done with the inpatient care, and I was getting discharged, I knew I wasn't done recovering physically. So we pushed and advocated for more visits. And that's when my social worker, set me up with in-home physical therapy. And that's how I started post hospital. Is I went home sometime in February, and I met a few therapists from the hospital that the hospital sent over to my house to get acquainted with them and to work on things that we could do around the house, like stairs, balance, those types of things. And unfortunately, those therapists recognized that they were not going to be able to help me regain my strength for running a marathon or riding a bicycle, and they advised me to find different outpatient services. So that's what we did, and how we found other outpatient services or care outside of the typical hospital setting was we asked around, and we asked our physical therapists, and we asked the social worker, and they gave us recommendations for different facilities in the area and different businesses in the area. And from there, that's where I started seeing a personal trainer. That was more recently. And I found a private company called NeuroAccess, which is run by neuro PTs and OTs. and they will come to your home and or a facility to work with you on your additional goals. It's where our physical therapy ends is where theirs picks up, which is nice or
Yeah.
was nice.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
Mhm.
my storyline's about the same. Yeah, I understand when you hear about inpatient, outpatient physical therapy, just stress, it isn't about making you an athlete again. It's making you just comfortable walking and stepping and moving your arms and legs. Their job as a therapist is not to make you a professional athlete again. It's to make you get stronger and have the ability to walk. They're teaching you how to walk all over again. They're teaching you how to use your arms all over again. So when I talk about, I joined the gym and all that and worked with trainers, that was after I was released as an outpatient. After we're released as outpatients. Basically, the hospital or your therapist place has determined this is as far as we can go. The next step for
Mhm.
you is to, join a gym and work with trainers that then now can rebuild. So I had to rebuild my muscle and structure and everything else just so I can become stronger and play baseball and hockey again, which never really happened, but well, that's the ideal goal.
Yes.
So understand, those are things every individual is going to go through. And as you get stronger and better, you have to determine your own path, whether you have the strength and the energy, to get back into playing sports. For someone that's obviously, still in their 20s, that is something you really want to do because your life is still ahead of you. Now, I was in my 50s, mid 50s when this all happened. So generally people hit 50 in real life, they kind of stop. They slow down. They don't get involved in playing ice hockey anymore. And I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just some people's goals are so different. So understand when you guys are going to get out of therapy or get out of rehab centers, and if you want to keep going, do the research before you get released or discharged as a outpatient, because then you have a next step. I did that. I had a gym and a trainer right next door to my office, so when I went back to work I could just hop over, and I worked with a couple of trainers and it was really good because it helped me build up strength. She put me on a program, so I joined the gym there too, and then did exercises in the facility. So I feel a lot of my strength is due to that. And for all of you listening to this podcast, I hope you find the direction you want to go. Everyone's got ambitious goals, and whichever one you decide is the one you can work with. Don't let the disability be the side effect to not doing it. I think you just have to continue to do it. You have to keep it. I'll mention a lot on this podcast. You just got to keep pushing yourself and to the level that you want. I know when I met Jess, that was part of it. I know Jess has improved in the 2 years since we met, because I think Jess is about a year and a half into her stroke recovery when I met her. And I know just talking to her now, and I've met her one other time since, the improvement she's had in terms of maybe her walking, her arm. And, that's important in your recovery. Your recovery has a lot of aspects to it. Physical is one, and obviously the mental. And we'll talk about, mental health down the road. But yeah, there are a lot of different things that are going to have attribute to your success and whatever your success wants to be. Looking at maybe you want to look at it as a job, look at it as a job. If you want to have a project, that's the project. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, before we wrap up, Jess, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask is how has your recovery gone to today? Like, where do you feel you're at with your recovery?
Yeah, so I know I mentioned another time that where I'm at, from my recovery is I am significantly better than January 1st of 2023, obviously. Um, so I went from complete paralysis to, I would say I'm about 67% recovered. So I'm able to walk unassisted now. Woo! Able to walk unassisted. And through the different types of rehabs and things that I've tried for recovery and physical recovery, I did participate in the Pittsburgh Marathon in 2024. So I did hit that goal, which was very exciting. So I'm back to, I was back to jogging. It's not pretty, but it's still jogging. And so I'm back to jogging. Cognitively, I've seen probably about a 60% improvement from comprehension and, you know, speaking, those types of things.
Yeah, that's great.
My,
Again,
oh, unfortunately, my left arm is still sleeping. So we're still working on waking her up. So that is not functional, but I know it's getting there.
yeah, absolutely. And again, each individual is going to have different goals, and our bodies are all different in terms of recovery. So you have to have a lot of patience. I think that's something Jess and I have shown a lot of. Am I a patient guy in general? Yeah, but sometimes you in sports and everything, you want things done today or
Yeah.
yesterday. You have ambitious goals. It's great to have these goals, but sometimes understand there's going to be a lot of frustration at the beginning of the recovery. For me, I thought I'd just lift a few weights and I'd be back to normal. The whole stroke would just go away. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. It took me probably a good year of training and working with a trainer and all the exercise I did. I did yoga as well to get to where we wanted to be. So that's one of the things that, we as individuals have to set up for ourselves. Work with your family, work with your support group, work with any of the people you're working with just to get feedback in what they think as well. You have to also remember recovery is really big in the first year. You'll start to plateau a little bit after the first year. It doesn't mean you're not recovering, because I know my recovery has been continue. And even 10 years in, I found my balance got better and things like that. But, these are a lot of things you need to work on in terms of your own self. When you get out of the hospitals, you just got to get right at it. Don't slow down if you want to continue. Don't get into the habits of just sitting around and hoping they'll come. Your body would just naturally get back to normal. It doesn't work that way anymore. So, for us, it's part of the reason Jess and I are here together on this is our path has been pretty much the same in terms of disabilities and the things we've gone through, maybe even the attitudes that we both possess as people trying to get better. So before we wrap up, Jess, anything that, any word of advice that you can give people just kind of going through stroke right now? You're 3 years in, so,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, just the reality of having a stroke is hard. It's annoying and frustrating. So you are not alone in that. One thing I would say I wish I did differently was to stop comparing my recovery expectations with other people who have had strokes and where they were within their recovery. It set me up for failure. Not failure, but it set me up for disappointment. And that's never good. We want to try and maintain as positive of a mindset as possible because your mind is strong, mind over matter, and recovery is hard. So just keep pushing, keep going, and you are not alone.
I hear you. Great advice. And I second that. You just have to keep going forward, as I said, and yeah, comparing yourself and yeah, just don't put a lot of expectations at the beginning. As you get stronger and better, sure, you can improve, and that's what you want to go with. So, on behalf of Jess and myself, thank you for listening to our podcast. There'll be a link below after with our both our Instagram pages, our Linktree pages that we have in terms of all the different things. We'll be here, every other week, every week in terms of putting out a podcast for you guys. We want to answer the questions or talk about what we've lived through, what we've gone through, anything you guys have. Put them in the link below, and we'll try to answer the best as possible. Every week, we're just going to cover a different topic in stroke recovery. It's been our pleasure to talk about our recovery. It does help for both of us mentally in terms of just understanding what we've been through and to be able to talk to people about our experiences. So on behalf of myself, I'm Kevin. And
And
Jess.
Jessica. Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to bringing you more podcasts in the future. Take care,
Yes.
everyone.
And find your community.
Yes, your community, and keep pushing forward.
Yes.